Hello, Maya, and hello, everyone who's watching this talk. I'm Kyungfa Choi, curator of the Museum of Contemporary Art Tokyo, and we are presenting this conversation in connection with the exhibition MOT Annual 2021, A Sea, a Living Room, and a Skull, which is on view until the 17th of October 2021. Maya is one of the three artists participating in this exhibition, and she's a visual artist originally from Peru and currently lives based in Amsterdam. In recent years, Maya's work has been engaging with Peru's political turmoil from 1980 until 2000, and how, more importantly, how the violent past has been dealt with in the Peruvian society and the justice system. So maybe today I'd like to begin our conversation with the question of how you arrived at this particular mode of visual articulation, which is on one hand, you say it's an act of witnessing, but on the other hand, you also say there's nothing to see. There's only pure affect. So maybe you can elaborate a little bit about this visual language that you reached so far.
Thank you so much for having me, not just in the show, but also in this conversation. I think it could be good to start saying that I was born like in the beginning, in the first years of the violent conflict, and like my life has been informed by that conflict. I didn't arrive to that subject till later on. I grew up in a family that was very much engaged, politically engaged with everything. And I think it was a matter of time that I also participate in this political conversation. The visual language, it has been something that I slowly arrived to. It was not something that just like appeared from scratch, and I think it has been part of a search to 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 find a position, ethical, professional, political position, from which, as an artist and as a citizen, being able to talk about these subjects and to share these subjects, to address these subjects and to share them with a bigger audience. It's true that there's nothing to see, but at the same time, there's a lot to see. The works are composed by a video. I mean, that's what I do. I work with video. But one of the most important elements of the work is a text that describes the video. It's a text that is usually up front the video, so it is part of the installation, and you are invited to read it prior to watching the film. So it's that connection between the information, like a very descriptive, dry text that tells you the context and very precisely what you are going to see, and then entering the installation and seeing and watching a very poetic and non-descriptive work that alludes to the text. I mean, alludes to something else, but is directly referring the text. So I mean, it could be kind of abstract to explain this way if you haven't seen the installations. But just to bring an example, one of the works that is being shown there at MOT is called Liminal, and it is a mass grave from the year 1984 that was unearthed in 2018, and the work was done in 2019. So I joined the Peruvian forensic team to this recovering of the bones. The people that is recorded there, the remains, were considered disappeared, missing people, until the forensic team recovered the remains. So this information, the dates, what you are looking at, all that is precisely, very descriptive, literally written in the text prior to see the exhibition. But when you enter the installation, the video shows a very close-up, extreme close-up, where it's very difficult to recognize what you are looking at. It's mainly blur. It's a 1 hour long video, and from time to time recognize some elements that could possibly remind you human remains. But it is these two things together, the information and the visual blurriness, the visual incapacity to recognize something, that this is what I try to put together. And in addition, of course, is the installation and how the body reacts and responds to the space, and how the body moves in the space also. It's something important. Yeah.
So that within this visual field, which is very abstract, the abstractness itself is very much manipulated, because the camera moves, but then you put certain focus in one place in one moment, and it sort of moves around. Same goes to the blurriness too. So it's like almost choreographed abstraction. And I'm sure it's coming afterwards, during the post-production. So it's like you document whatever is being unearthed in the mass grave, and then you bring the material to the studio, and you sort of let it almost perform by manipulating the visual. And I wonder what the process is like, how you decide this, how you render this performativity of the visual too.
Yeah, the manipulation of the image is very strong, but also very subtle. It looks like, it's not like an effects, or I'm trying to think in people that haven't seen the works. So it is not. It looks like it haven't been touched, the image. So I think that the works and the way I work responds to a kind of documentary impulse, but at the same time I'm very much aware of the visual language. My formation, my education is as an artist in fine arts. So that's the. Even if it sounds like kind of categorical or like I'm putting myself in a box. It's from that perspective that I look this documentation of or the perspective from which I see things. So I'm very much aware of the visual language and the poetics of the language as well. When I work in a new project, I research a lot. I'm very much prepared for what I'm gonna do when I'm there in front of the scene. But as this is a huge subject that requires lots of sensibility, I'm also completely open to whatever is going to happen. So I'm very much prepared. I'm very control freak, but then I'm completely open to whatever is going to happen. And most of the times, this preparedness helps me to react better to unforeseen situations. So when I confront this situation and I record, it comes like something completely different than I expected. So that's what I bring to the studio, and I work with that. And that, I think that process of abstraction or of working with the material, it could be seen as that I'm manipulating the evidence or the document, but actually I'm not trying to document something. I'm trying to create a situation that effectively can reach differently people. So that process from documentation to installation, that's the process that happens in the studio. I think that's the key, the key, the language I found to be able to access to that subject matter, as I was saying before, from a perspective that I find politically, ethically, professionally coherent.
Mm. Yeah. I just wondered how this, ethical question comes into play when you open up these subject matter in a way that you do. Ethical in relation to talking about someone's death, someone's pain, maybe the families of the victim, which is still ongoing. But is there any sort of, I don't know, what are the ethical questions that you always have in mind?
I think the ethical questions are the questions that I ask myself while I do work. And of course, I ask other things, but they're somehow secondary. I'm working with human remains, so there's no way to escape to ask some questions. Maybe that's why not like all artists question themselves in this way. But as I'm dealing with this subject, that's what I have to ask myself. How can I approach this subject? It's very, very complex. I don't think I have arrived at the perfect or correct or whatever position, but it's the best I can do. I really try to do my best and to take care of all the elements around. when working with human remains that have relatives, the ethical question goes directly to the relatives. And I think that that's the work that has to be done, or that's the work that really creates the final form of the installation, for example. So how a relationship can be created with them, what space do they have in the work, are they comfortable with me there? Like all these questions. What are the hierarchies that appear as well? Me being someone arriving to document, like their pain, because I'm not like recording them, but a situation that has been so much painful for them. So it is a negotiation, a constant negotiation, and that's where the ethical questions appear. But when I work, for example, with Bullet, with a non-identified human skull, it's even more difficult because there's no consent from the subject, from the person, or behind, but the person holding these non-identified remains, but also not relatives with whom to measure, my position. So that's even more difficult, and somehow the way I found to feel coherence with working with this skull was to having a first image of the skull itself, which was very, was something that I dubbed a lot, because it's an image that you can say, like, this is a skull, this is a human skull, which is not something that appears in the other videos, like they are more abstract. But in this work, I thought, okay, to abstract these human remain is somehow to exert the same violence that the judicial system is exerting on them. Like, it's not that they are not allowed to have an identity, but delaying the process, like creating obstacles to the system. So it was like to create more more abstraction, to withdraw even more the biography of the subject, of the human. So that's why I decided to show the skull. It is a sign of biography somehow. But those are questions that are all the time there. The visual form of each video respond to the ethical questions that are behind each video.
Just curious, have you met any questions or challenges from your audience, or the relatives of the victims? Because I'm sure, there was a comment from an audience here, a written comment, saying that this person felt uncomfortable because he felt as if the artist is using this power to utilize the dead body. And your work is, of course, not excluding this kind of understanding of the work as well. So I wonder how you sort of respond to these kind of ways of seeing, in a way.
Yeah, I have encountered this kind of comments, not so much. Yeah, but I think those are not works to make people comfortable to begin with. And I understand perfectly that as I have a position, like the position of an artist, that is a very small and elitist um, profession. Adding to that, in Peru, there's a huge difference between class, race, economics. So I come from a place of lots of privilege, and as you said, like this power. I called hierarchy before to the same thing, but it's a power that I have. So all those questions are there. But the thing is, what you do with those realities is a reality. Okay, what I do with that. So to be conscious about that, to create different ways, different relations with the relatives, with the dead. I hope that is what makes what creates different possibilities of being, of relation, of different possibilities of power, different possibilities of hierarchy, different possibilities of open up these questions. So there is a power that I hold just for being me, in front of a situation. Okay, what do I do with this privilege? Am I imposing to the relatives that I'm gonna record this and whatever, or do I create a different relation that can create a better world? I don't know if I'm being too dreamy, but I really think that that's possible. And that's like a lot of things that, that's the base of the work. Then the visual language and other things that appear, and then how you show it, where you show it. But that for me, that's like the meat, the body of the projects. Okay, it's completely different if I show it in Japan, that has its own history, its own associations, than if I do it in Peru. And in that case, of course, you have to take care everywhere you show it, no? But in Peru, for example, where the bond is there, the measures taken are extra careful. So it's not. It becomes a space to debate, to discuss these subjects, instead of to show, to instrumentalize the death, or to gain something from myself from this subject. It becomes a space of conversation, and that's also like something that has to be with mediation of the work, like what you do with you have an exhibition, okay, but then what happens besides the work itself? Like, they talk, to whom do you invite, who talks about this work, only the art magazines or the Ministry of Justice? It becomes also, it's a matter, it's partly my responsibility to make this work reach a the widest audience possible. And also, like, I mean, I have also, like, now that we're talking about, like, comments from people. For example, I have, like, once I had a conversation with a German woman, like, kind of against removing the past. So I think that if we talk, I mean, it depends on the context, it depends on how history and how history has been reviewed by by people, and how much it has been healed. But in Peru and in other parts of Latin America too, it's like a history that hasn't been recognized or closed. So when I talk about, or when I address this conflict or period in the work, I don't just address the past, but what is happening now with that past. When I'm talking about the mass graves, there are still like 6,000 mass graves. They know where they are, but they are not opening them because it's a very slow process. Or we still have like 20,000 missing people. So it's something that is still there, and is part of the today's current political situation. I mean, a few days ago, the yeah, the leader of Sendero Luminoso, the main guerrilla organization, armed organization in Peru, died. So now they don't know what to do with the remains, because they don't want to bury them in a place that can be what do you call it? Venerated. So there's still veneration. The government now, the government that is in power now has some links to this organization. Then the right wings is all. They accuse everyone of being terrorist. So it's something that is still there as a current. It's happening. It's still happening somehow. I mean, as a discourse, let's say. But the fact that it's still happening as a discourse shows that there's a lot that haven't been resolved, and I think it's very important to remove this, because it haven't been it hasn't been like solved or resolved or closed as a society.
Mm-hmm. When this kind of issues exist everywhere, I guess the existence of ungrievable, the intentional amnesia of the dead or the past. That's why I guess you're saying that this work could work in different historical and social contexts. And there is certain in Japan also it does resonate with its own historical context. Just wondering how the Peruvian people sort of responded to the visual language so far. because it's still very, like I said, it sort of creates certain visceral reaction because it's still there. The moment when the focus becomes clear, it's the materiality of the body of someone who used to live. It's still pretty much there. So I guess it creates certain, I guess, more sort of intense reaction when it comes to people who are in the context. And I just wonder how people have been reacting to. Well, I guess you haven't shown Bullet yet in
No.
Peru, but how the reaction of the liminal has been so far.
Yeah, if and when I show Bullet will be a different story, I think. But with liminal, there were like different reactions. It has been shown only once. It was a big exhibition in the main museum, the National Lima Museum of Art. So huge building, very imponent, and I was not quite comfortable with that, but at the same time, it was the best place to show subject that has been diminished or erased. Also in the capital, the country where this conflict felt differently than in the countryside. I received very little attention from the press, and I think it was because of the subject. We organized a couple of days before the opening a view with the relatives. And I think that's what it's important, besides like what kind of reactions could have the work. The private view, let's say, with the relative was very important and reaffirmed that was something that was good, and then, as I said, like little attention from the press. I think also because it's there's something that I do with the works in the description of the work. Is that in liminal, for example, I don't say if the remains are from armed groups or civilian population or the military. So I just say like they are human remains. And that maybe sounds like nothing for you, but in Peru it's like a huge statement because I could be accused of being terrorist because I'm not showing, or maybe, who knows, showing a terrorist human remain and somehow venerated it. I mean, I'm just like leaving that open to include grief, as you said. And with Bullet it will be more complicated because I express, it's like well, it's like written that it's someone that has been killed by the military. So I'm accusing the military in that video. It's something that everyone knows, but to do it like to show it in a context. I mean, in a context in which it's not completely solved, and could bring lots of problems, or it could be
So,
problematic for me. Yeah.
so you think it would be quite difficult to present the work in?
Yes, but as I said, like, I mean, I don't know if it was because of the work, if it was because of the museum, or the moment in which it happened. But when I show it there, they were queuing outside the installation. So I mean, and I received like very good and positive comments, and also, as I said before, like, I mean, we frame it in a way that was not just a piece of a work of art, but also it was a work of art to create a discussion around the subject. So I think that was like very, very much important in how people receive it, and the talks that we did around it, the kind of opening, for example, the education around it, all the mediation around the work was very, very important. So we took a lot of care of that.
You work with forensic archaeologist, and for Bullet, you also worked with this specialist who keep these remains. And I wondered how you sort of, create this relationship of trust, because it's very much part of the work, no? That they let you deal with, put your camera in to the skull. So I wonder how you work around, work on this relationship of trust and collaboration. Is it something that has been sort of developed since years ago, or you have certain, I don't know, friendship or connection? Just wondered, because it's without it, it's not possible, this work.
Not easy. It wasn't easy. It was not easy at all. I mean, the forensic team was or is very not secretive, but I mean, it's their work, and obviously they have to be very respectful with the victims, so they don't allow people like from abroad to come. At the same time, not from outside to come. I mean, not abroad the country, but outside their profession, gremio. I don't know in Spanish, in English. But at the same time, it's a work that requires sensibility to human rights. So they are keen to spread the word, to let people know that they don't have a budget, that they are struggling to try to identify the remains. So it's a work that is kind of against odds, like they have to fight. So they are at the same time happy, not happy, but they welcome people that can make or generate visibility to their work. But I mean, it's a very pyramidal, like a organization in the government. So if you reach the base, you can't do anything. You have to reach here and then all the doors open. But to reach here is really difficult. So yeah, I just I just call and call and call and call. And then I think that there's also, it's not that I think, but it's obviously also part of this privilege that I was talking before, that allowed me to reach the top of the tip of the pyramid, and that opened up the doors. And then the collaboration and the relation with them, it comes from them seeing me being very respectful with their work, I think, but also because the shooting, the shooting mainly happens in remote areas. So, for example, Liminal, one of the graves, there are two graves. One of them was a place that was like one plane, 10 hours by car and 10 hours walking. So it was like a very remote area, and then we spent a week there, and in a very extreme circumstance. So I think experiences make like extreme experiences bond people. So the relationship was created there. But for Bullet was even more complicated because the remains, as they are non-identified, they are part of a trial. They are still a case that is an open case. So they are evidence. And that was really, really difficult to access to. Because if you don't have a reason to open up a box with evidence for a case, if you are not part of the case, they will never open it to you. So I really had to work hard. And at the end, I could do it just 2 hours with one public prosecutor, and the chief of the forensic team, like both of them looking at me all the time while I was working. Yes, it's not easy, and it's also part of creating this relation is, again, we come back to this like ethical question.
But in this new work, you're more clearly accusing a certain power, which is, I guess, it's more brave, and more sort of risky also. Mm-hmm. Just wonder where you're going next. Mm-hmm. Like, what do you? If it's not like very specific form of a project, where your thinking is, your thoughts are going.
Yeah.
If there's any.
Mm-hmm. Well, at MOT, I'm showing 3 works that are very much related to the political violent period in Peru. But I also have other works that are more engaged with execution of violence, to not just from human to human, but from human to everyone or everything. I think that what is like under or subterranean in both branches of the work, it's not like both, but it's just one, let's say. It's about violence, it's about death, it's about control over life and death. The categories that place a human under a legal state of being non-identified, missing, official death, but at the same time, like it's like death, alive. You know, it's like, I think it's a big bowl in which both kind of violence and controls over life and death are somehow like mixed together. And then like some works are more like related to a geopolitical context, that is Peru, and other ones are less related, but more going to the point of like this distinction between alive, non-alive, alive, but what legal stamp you have on them. So the next project is more related to this non-geopolitical context, but it's very much related to death, to time, and to violence. So I mean, I can tell you more or less what is the project about, but I'm going to work. I'm not working, but I'm going to work with the animal carcasses that appear when the permafrost melts. Yeah, there's also like different layers of time, of encounter with the death. Also lots of ethical questions that I think that now are kind of like fashionable, if you want, but about like non-human human relationships. So yeah, there's like, I mean, it's kind of like the same questions were applied to different subjects. Yeah.
I remember we talked about it.
Yeah.
It's possible for a second. But I'm very happy that you realized this bullet, because you were saying at the very beginning of the project that, you know, you're not sure if you could film it because you have to go to Peru and you weren't sure if the permission will be, you know, granted.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm very happy that you realized it, and we are showing it in here and now in Amsterdam also.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess, yeah, we went over time. Thank you so much. It's pity that you couldn't see the show here in person, but be assured it's looking great. And I hope we can meet in person someday.
Yeah, no, it has been a pleasure to work with you and the museum.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kim.
And thank you everyone who watched this conversation, and I'm hoping that you will have time or chance to see the show if you're in Japan. So thank you for watching the conversation.
Thank you so much.